You have to listen to me. This is more serious than you think.
She arrived with a mark on her neck. The CO noticed, and jealousy demanded who did this. Amelia Parker noticed the silence before she noticed the stares. It was subtle at first, the way conversations dipped as she passed, the way eyes lingered half a second too long before darting away. The marble lobby of Archer Global had always been loud in the mornings, filled with hurried footsteps, overlapping greetings, the hum of ambition. Today it felt like the air itself had paused. She reached the elevator bank and caught her reflection in the polished steel doors. And there it was. The faint but unmistakable mark on her neck. Her stomach dropped. She lifted her hand instinctively, fingers brushing the skin just below her jawline. The concealer had faded more than she thought. No matter how carefully she'd blended it that morning, no matter how deliberately she'd styled her hair to fall forward, the mark still showed, soft purple, blooming against pale skin like an accusation. She exhaled slowly. Stupid, she thought. Careless. The memory flashed uninvited, the late-night gym session, the snapped resistance band, the sharp sting she'd brushed off at the time. She hadn't even thought about it until she woke up and saw the bruise forming. Of all days. The elevator chimed, doors sliding open, and Amelia stepped inside with 3 other employees. No one said a word. One woman glanced at her neck, then quickly looked away. A man shifted awkwardly, suddenly very interested in his phone. The doors closed. As the elevator ascended toward the 46th floor, Amelia straightened her shoulders. She'd survived worse than whispers. Still, her pulse quickened, not because of the mark itself but because of who would see it next. Monsieur. Jackson Archer was not a man who missed details. That was what made him dangerous. Not loud authority or intimidation but attention. The kind that cut through boardrooms and balance sheets and landed precisely where it mattered. Amelia had worked as his executive assistant for nearly 2 years. In that time she'd learned his habits, his moods, his silences. She knew the exact second he decided someone was lying. She knew the difference between his distracted stare and his focused one. And she knew, absolutely knew, that he would notice the mark on her neck the moment he looked at her. The elevator opened onto Archer Global's executive floor. Floor-to-ceiling windows flooded the space with light, casting sharp lines across white marble and glass walls. Everything here screamed power, muted colors, minimalist art, furniture that cost more than most people's cars. Amelia walked past reception, offering a polite smile to Nora, the front desk coordinator. "Morning," Nora said, then hesitated, eyes flicking briefly to Amelia's neck. "Mr. Archer's already in." Of course he was. "He asked for you as soon as you arrived." Amelia nodded, fingers tightening around her tablet. "Thank you." She moved toward the corner office, the one that dominated the floor like a throne room. The glass walls revealed Jackson Archer standing near the windows, phone pressed to his ear, posture rigid. Even from a distance she could sense the tension rolling off him. He ended the call abruptly. "Send them the revised numbers," he said into the phone. "And tell legal I want answers today." He turned. And his gaze locked onto her. Amelia felt it like a physical thing. His eyes, steel gray, sharp, unreadable, swept over her face, her posture, her expression. Then they stopped. On her neck. Just for a fraction of a second. But that was enough. Something changed. She knocked lightly on the open door. "Good morning, Mr. Archer." "Amelia," he said, voice neutral, but his jaw had tightened. She stepped inside, taking her usual seat across from his desk, placing her tablet neatly in front of her. This room had never intimidated her before. Today it felt smaller. "Charge. We need to review the Helios acquisition briefing before 10, she said smoothly. I flagged the revised risk projections. Jackson didn't sit. Instead he walked around the desk. Closer. Too close. "Your hair," he said quietly. "It's different." She blinked. "I just wore it to one side today." His gaze hadn't moved. "What happened to your neck?" The words landed heavy. Amelia's fingers curled instinctively toward the mark before she stopped herself. "It's nothing," she said quickly. "Just a minor accident." Jackson's eyes darkened. "That doesn't look like nothing." The air thickened between them. "It was a gym thing," she said, forcing calm into her voice. Resistance band snapped. He studied her face like he was searching for cracks. "Are you sure?" "Yes." Pause. Then lower, controlled but edged with something raw. "Did someone do that to you?" Her breath caught. "No," she said firmly. "No one hurt me." For a moment, Jackson looked like a man restraining himself from something reckless. Then he exhaled, slow and deliberate, and stepped back. Good, he said. Because if someone had. He stopped. Straightened. Professional mask back in place. Let's focus on Helios. They worked in silence, but it was the loudest silence Amelia had ever experienced. She could feel his attention drifting back to her again and again. Every time she shifted, every time she leaned forward, his gaze followed. When she stood to leave, his hand brushed her wrist. Not accidental. If you ever feel unsafe, he said quietly, eyes locked on hers, you come to me. She nodded. Of course. Then, before she could stop herself, she added, that seems unusually personal. His lips pressed into a thin line. Maybe it is. The moment shattered when his phone buzzed. He stepped back. We're late, he said. But as Amelia walked out, she felt his stare burning into her back. And something inside her shifted. The next few days changed everything. Jackson called her into his office constantly. For trivial reasons. For things that could have been emailed. Each time, his eyes went straight to her neck. Then to anyone standing too close to her. When Ryan Cole, the new operations analyst, laughed too easily at her jokes, Jackson interrupted the meeting. When a senior VP complimented her presentation, Jackson ended the discussion abruptly. By Friday, the entire floor felt it. Something was wrong. Or rather, something was happening. And Amelia realized something that made her heart pound with equal parts fear and power. The CEO wasn't just noticing. He was jealous. That realization became dangerous the day Vanessa Hale arrived. Vanessa swept into the office like she owned it, designer heels, flawless smile, entitlement woven into every movement. She kissed Jackson's cheek without hesitation, ignoring Amelia completely. Still hiding your best asset behind a desk, Jackson? Vanessa said lightly. Amelia lowered her gaze, pulse racing. Jackson didn't smile. Vanessa, he said coolly, this is my executive assistant. Her name is Amelia. Vanessa's eyes flicked to the mark on Amelia's neck. And she smirked. Well, she said, how interesting. Amelia felt it then. Judgment. Assumption. Dismissal. She was suddenly not a professional, but a rumor. And as Vanessa laughed softly, Jackson's expression hardened into something fierce. That was the moment Amelia understood. Whatever this was between her and the CEO, it was no longer private. And it was about to explode. The whisper became a weapon, and the CEO watched them use it. By Monday morning, the mark on Amelia Parker's neck was no longer just a bruise. It was a story. She felt it the moment she stepped onto the executive floor. Conversations didn't just pause now, they rerouted. Laughter lowered. Eyes flicked toward her, then away, like people afraid of being caught staring at something they weren't supposed to see. No one asked her directly. They never did. Instead, speculation moved faster than truth ever could. Amelia passed two junior analysts near the coffee station. One whispered something. The other gasped softly, hand flying to her mouth. Amelia kept walking, her posture straight, her face calm, even as something sharp twisted in her chest. She had learned early in life that dignity was often mistaken for guilt. At her desk, she set her bag down carefully and opened her calendar. Her schedule was packed, back-to-back meetings, investor calls, a board briefing late afternoon. Normally she thrived on the rhythm. Today the silence felt louder than noise. Her phone buzzed. Jackson Archer. My office. No explanation. No context. She stood, smoothed her blouse, and walked toward the glass-walled corner office that now felt less like a workplace and more like a storm center. Jackson was standing when she entered, jacket off, sleeves rolled up, pacing like a man wrestling with invisible enemies. He stopped the moment he saw her. Close the door, he said. She did. The click echoed. You didn't tell me everything, he said, eyes sharp. Amelia blinked. About what? The mark, he said flatly. About what it's doing to you. She inhaled slowly. I didn't think office gossip was your concern. His jaw tightened. It becomes my concern when people start disrespecting you. That caught her off guard. They are, he continued. I've heard the comments. The assumptions. Her shoulders stiffened. I can handle whispers. You shouldn't have to. She looked at him then, really looked. The tension in his face wasn't irritation. It was restraint. Why does this bother you so much? She asked quietly. He didn't answer. Instead, his gaze dropped, once again, to her neck. Whoever did that, he said, voice low, has made half this company forget who you are. And who am I? She asked. He met her eyes. You're the reason this place runs, he said. You're the most competent person in every room you walk into. And right now, people are reducing you to a rumor. Something warm and painful bloomed in her chest. Before she could respond, his assistant pinged through the intercom. Mr. Archer, the leadership meeting is starting. Jackson exhaled. We'll talk later. But Amelia knew. This was already out of their control. The meeting was where it broke open. 20 people sat around the polished conference table, executives, directors, board observers. Amelia stood at the screen, tablet in hand, walking them through the quarterly strategy realignment. She spoke with confidence, precision. But it didn't matter. Not today. One of the board observers leaned back, eyes flicking toward her neck without shame. Miss Parker, he said, smirking faintly, are you feeling well enough to be presenting today? The room stilled. Amelia felt heat rush to her face, but she kept her voice steady. I'm perfectly well. Another executive chuckled softly. Must have been a rough weekend. That was when Jackson Archer stood. The chair scraped sharply against the floor. Enough. Every head turned. That comment was inappropriate, Jackson said, voice cold. And so was the implication behind it. The board observer raised his hands mockingly. Relax. Just making conversation. You don't make conversation about my staff's bodies, Jackson snapped. Ever. Silence swallowed the room. Amelia felt something shift, not just in the room but in herself. For the first time, someone with power had said stop before she had to. Jackson looked at her. Continue. She did. But when the meeting ended, the damage was already done. Respect had fractured. And fractures spread. By lunchtime, HR was involved. Amelia sat across from a woman with sympathetic eyes and rehearsed concern. We've received a few informal reports, the HR manager said carefully. Reports of what? Amelia asked. Potential, inappropriate conduct. Amelia's fingers tightened in her lap. Conduct by whom? The HR manager hesitated. By you. The room tilted. Excuse me? There are rumors suggesting you may be involved in a personal relationship with someone in leadership, the woman said gently. And that the mark on your neck is from a gym accident, Amelia said firmly. Which I explained to my direct supervisor. The HR manager nodded. We understand. But perception matters. There it was. The unspoken rule. Perception mattered more than truth. When Amelia left the room, she didn't go back to her desk. She went to the roof. The wind hit her hard, tugging at her hair, clearing the fog from her mind. For the first time since this started, her composure cracked. Tears blurred her vision, not from shame but from exhaustion. She had done everything right. Worked harder. Spoken softer. Endured quietly. And still she was being reduced. The door behind her opened. Jackson stepped out. They called HR without telling me, he said. Amelia wiped her eyes quickly. I don't need rescuing. I know, he said. But I won't let them destroy you. She laughed bitterly. They already think they have. Jackson stepped closer. Then they're about to learn how wrong they are. She turned to him. What does that mean? He looked out over the city skyline, eyes dark with decision. It means, he said, they've underestimated the wrong person. That afternoon, Amelia received an email. Subject, Executive Strategy Review, Mandatory Attendance. She frowned. She wasn't scheduled for that meeting. When she entered the boardroom later, she realized why. Every major executive was present, including people she had never even spoken to. Jackson stood at the head of the table. Amelia Parker, he said clearly, will be leading today's presentation. Murmurs rippled. She froze. Jackson met her eyes. Show them. Her heart hammered. She walked to the front. And for the next 40 minutes, Amelia dismantled every doubt in the room. She spoke numbers, foresight, strategy. She answered questions before they were finished being asked. She corrected projections made by men twice her age, with facts they couldn't argue. By the end, the room was silent. Not awkward. Awestruck. Jackson broke it. That, he said, is why she's here. Eyes shifted. Postures changed. Respect, slowly, painfully, began to return. But Amelia knew something deeper had changed. The mark on her neck had exposed more than gossip. It had exposed jealousy, insecurity, and how quickly people judged. And as she looked around the room, one thought echoed in her mind. If this is what they think I am, then they have no idea what's coming. The truth emerged, and suddenly they were afraid. The shift didn't happen all at once. It began in small, almost invisible ways. Doors opened faster when Amelia Parker approached. Voices softened. Smiles appeared where indifference once lived. People who had never bothered to learn her name suddenly remembered it. But respect earned under pressure has a strange texture. It's cautious, and Amelia could feel it. She sat at her desk late one evening, reviewing financial models long after most of the floor had emptied. The city outside the glass walls glowed like a constellation, distant, untouchable. Normally she loved this hour. It was quiet, honest. Tonight it felt heavy. Her inbox chimed. Board directive. Executive realignment review. Confidential. She frowned. This wasn't part of the usual workflow. She opened the document and froze. Her name appeared in the first paragraph. Not as support. Not as assistant. As principal contributor. Her pulse quickened. Footsteps approached. Jackson stopped beside her desk, holding 2 coffees. He placed one gently next to her keyboard. You saw it, he said. This is unusual, she replied carefully. That's one word for it. She turned to him. Why now? Because, he said quietly, they finally realized something. She searched his face. What? That you've been protecting them from their own ignorance. Her breath caught. Before she could ask more, voices echoed from down the hall. Laughter. Familiar. Sure. Vanessa Hale. Amelia stiffened as Vanessa approached with 2 senior executives trailing behind her like ornaments. Vanessa's eyes flicked to Amelia's neck again, lingering just a second too long. Well, Vanessa said sweetly, if it isn't the most talked about woman in the building. Amelia stood. Can I help you? She asked evenly. Vanessa smiled. Oh, I'm sure you could help in many ways. Jackson stepped forward instantly. That's enough. Vanessa's eyes widened briefly, then hardened. Relax, she said. We're all adults here. She leaned closer to Amelia. I hear you've been very influential lately. Amelia met her gaze. Influence tends to follow competence. One executive snorted. Vanessa laughed, but it was brittle. Careful. That kind of confidence can look like ambition. It is ambition, Amelia said calmly. The professional kind. The air went cold. Vanessa straightened. You might want to remember your place. Jackson's voice cut through like steel. She knows exactly where she stands. Vanessa turned on him. And where is that, Jackson? He didn't hesitate. At the center of this company's future. Silence crashed down. Vanessa stared at him as if she'd misheard. Amelia felt the ground shift beneath her feet. Vanessa forced a laugh. You're joking. I'm not, Jackson said. And I'd advise you to reconsider how you speak to her. Vanessa's smile finally cracked. She left without another word. But the damage was done. And so was the reveal. The board meeting 2 days later wasn't supposed to include Amelia. It wasn't on her calendar. Yet there she stood, summoned without explanation, watching men and women who had once dismissed her now sit straighter as she entered. Jackson didn't introduce her. He simply said, She's here. The board chair cleared his throat. Miss Parker, we've reviewed your work. Amelia nodded. Yes, sir. The restructuring model, he continued, the risk mitigation strategy, the international expansion forecast. He paused. All of it was yours? Yes. A murmur rippled. And you've been operating in an assistant capacity by choice? She hesitated, then spoke the truth. By necessity, she said. I was hired for support. I delivered results. The chair studied her. You could have left. I could have, she said. But I believed the work mattered. Jackson watched her like a man witnessing something sacred. Another board member leaned forward. Do you know why we called you here? No, Amelia replied honestly. The chair folded his hands. Because the company you quietly helped stabilize last year, before the merger? Her heart skipped. It was yours. The room froze. Amelia's breath caught. I'm sorry, someone whispered. The chair nodded. Before joining Archer Global, Amelia Parker was the majority shareholder of Parker Analytics, acquired under a blind trust. She stepped back to understand this organization from the inside. I snapped to her. Confusion. Disbelief. Vanessa's name echoed in her mind. Remember your place. Amelia finally understood something she hadn't even known she needed. This wasn't about status. It was about choice. Jackson spoke then, voice steady but fierce. She never used her position. Never demanded respect. She earned it. The board chair nodded. And those who judged her by appearances? He looked around the room. They misjudged badly. Amelia stood taller, not in pride but in clarity. She wasn't hiding. She never had been. They simply hadn't looked closely enough. Word spread faster than gossip ever had. The mark on her neck, the whisper, the judgment, none of it mattered now. What mattered was what people realized too late. The woman they had reduced to rumor had been power all along. And power, once revealed, changes everything. When power shifted, the masks fell. The fallout was immediate. By the next morning, the executive floor felt different, not quieter but sharper. Conversations stopped when Amelia Parker passed, not out of gossip now but calculation. People measured their words, their smiles, their past behavior. Because once power is revealed, memory becomes dangerous. Amelia arrived early as she always had. Habit was hard to break. But today, when she stepped onto the floor, no one pretended not to see her. "Good morning, Miss Parker." The title landed strangely. She nodded politely and kept walking. At her desk sat a sealed envelope. No return address. Inside was a printed email chain, screenshots, comments, messages she was never meant to see. Executives speculating. Assistants laughing. A casual cruelty disguised as curiosity. One line stood out, bolded in yellow. "She doesn't belong here. She's only here because someone wants her." Amelia closed her eyes. Not because it hurt, but because it confirmed what she had always known. She folded the pages neatly and stood. Jackson was already waiting in his office. "You saw it?" he said. "Yes." "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "I should have shut it down sooner." "You couldn't," she replied. "They wouldn't have listened." He studied her. "And now?" She met his gaze. "Now they have to." The meeting was announced company-wide. Mandatory attendance. No agenda. That alone sparked panic. People filled the auditorium, executives in tailored suits, managers clutching tablets, assistants whispering anxiously. No one knew why they were there, but everyone felt it. Amelia stood backstage, heart steady. Jackson stepped beside her. "You don't have to do this." "Yes," she said softly. "I do." When they walked onto the stage together, the room fell silent. Jackson spoke first. "Over the past 2 weeks," he said, "we've witnessed behavior that does not reflect the values this company claims to uphold." Eyes darted. Assumptions. Gossip. Disrespect. He paused. Directed at one person. All eyes turned. Amelia stepped forward. "I came here to work," she said. "I stayed because I believed effort would be enough." A hush settled. "But when I walked in with a bruise on my neck, I became something else to you." Screens lit up behind her. Messages. Quotes. Screenshots. Gasps rippled through the crowd. "I didn't defend myself," Amelia continued. "Not because I was weak, but because I wanted to see who you would be when you thought no one powerful was watching." She looked directly at Vanessa Hale in the front row. "And now I know." Vanessa's face drained of color. "Some of you thought I was promoted because I was desired," Amelia said. "Some thought I was careless. Some thought I was disposable." She took a breath. "But I was never any of those things." The board chair stepped forward. "Effective immediately," he announced, "we are initiating disciplinary action." Names were read aloud. Executives. Managers. Vanessa Hale. Vanessa stood abruptly. "This is absurd." Jackson's voice cut in. "It's accountability." Vanessa laughed bitterly. "You're choosing her over everyone else?" Jackson didn't hesitate. "I'm choosing integrity." Security approached. Vanessa's heels echoed as she was escorted out, her composure shattering with every step. Amelia watched, not with triumph but with quiet resolve. Later, alone in the empty auditorium, Amelia finally let herself breathe. Jackson joined her. "You changed this place," he said. She shook her head. It was already broken. He looked at her, something unguarded in his expression. "I never cared about the mark," he said softly. "I cared about what it revealed." She smiled faintly. "So did I." For the first time there was no hierarchy between them. Only truth. Respect was earned, and the truth finally spoke. The building felt lighter after the meeting. Not because people were relieved, but because something toxic had finally been named and removed. Amelia Parker felt it as she walked through the halls that evening. Conversations no longer stopped. They softened. Changed direction. People looked at her differently now, not with curiosity, not with suspicion, but with awareness. The kind that comes after consequences. She stopped by her desk for the first time since the announcement. Her inbox was flooded, not with apologies but with acknowledgments. Quiet admissions. Requests for guidance. Invitations to collaborate. Power she realized wasn't loud. It was weight. Jackson stood near the windows of his office, city lights stretching endlessly behind him. When Amelia entered, he didn't speak right away. "I should have said something sooner," he finally said. She shook her head. "If you had, they would have dismissed it. People only listen when silence ends on its own terms." He studied her. "You planned this." "I endured it," she corrected. "There's a difference." He nodded slowly. "What happens now?" Amelia looked around the office, at the space she once entered quietly, invisibly. "Now," she said, "I stopped being an exception." The following weeks rewrote the culture of Archer Global. Policies changed. Reporting structures evolved. But more importantly, behavior shifted. The same people who once whispered now paused before speaking, before assuming, before judging. Amelia didn't demand authority. She modeled it. She took her seat at the strategy table, not as a symbol but as a contributor. She challenged ideas. She uplifted voices that had once been ignored. She corrected with grace, not vengeance. Some people avoided her. Others learned. Both outcomes were fine. One afternoon, Amelia passed the lobby mirror again, the same place where this all began. The mark on her neck was gone now, skin smooth and unremarkable. And yet she smiled. Because it had never been about the bruise. It had been about how quickly people believed a story without asking for truth. Jackson joined her beside the elevator. "You know," he said, "that moment changed everything." She nodded. "Yes." "For the company," he added. She met his gaze. "And for me." The elevator doors opened. They stepped inside, not CEO and assistant, not savior and survivor, but equals who had seen each other clearly. As the doors closed, Amelia caught her reflection one last time. Not diminished. Not underestimated.